So the other week, Piers Morgan had on an IDF spokesperson, and they got into a pretty heated back and forth because the IDF spokesperson was saying, we know exactly how many Hamas terrorists we've killed. And then when Piers would push him on, okay, so then how many civilians have you killed? He'd be like, oh, we have no idea. That doesn't make much sense because the same methods by which you would determine how many Hamas you killed is the same methods by which you would know how many civilians you've killed. In fact, it's probably easier to know a rough total body count than it is to parse out the specific number of terrorists versus civilians, right? So that argument just doesn't make any sense. Look, either you don't know for both of them or you know for both of them. That's the bottom line. So anyway, some new Israeli hack comes on the show and she walks into the same trap. And as you're about to see here, he's astonished at the stupidity. Here we go.
What was the problem with the Ahmed government? What was the problem with the Rabin government?
Well, they didn't kill nearly 40,000 Palestinians in 8 months.
First of all, please, Piers, we know that the numbers have gone up and down like yo-yos. Even the UN said last week that it wasn't already 35,
how many do you think have been killed?
That it was 20. All I can say to you is
how many do you think have been killed?
We have, I would say, potentially around 20,000 because that's what the UN
have
said,
no idea.
22,000.
You have no idea.
Let's not start with this line of questioning.
Actually, I'm going to start with this line of questioning.
I don't think Churchill knew in the middle of the Second World War how many Germans he'd killed. And so this is a farcical question. What I can tell you is
you just gave me a number, but you've no idea why you've got that number.
That's what the UN says. The UN says, according to the so-called Gaza Health Ministry, let's take their number. Let's take the number, the mistaken, corrected number of the Gaza so-called health ministry, all terrorists underground, hiding like cowards. But let's say now they're saying 22,000. We know we've killed 14,000 terrorists.
No, you don't.
Now you tell me.
Don't.
Yes, we do.
No, you
yes,
don't.
we do. So you tell me.
No, I'm sorry. I'm not having that. I pressed the Israeli.
We know how many brigades. We know how many brigades we've gotten rid of. We know how many brigades.
Hang on. I'm going to respond to you. I did put this.
We know how many brigades.
I put this to an Israeli government spokesman. I asked him, how many Hamas have you killed? And he gave me this figure. And I said, how many civilians have you killed? And he had no idea. I said, well, then how can you be so precise of how many terrorists you've killed? You can't. If you've got no idea how many civilians you've killed, why should I believe a word about the numbers of Hamas?
Because we know how many brigades they have, because we have that intelligence. We know how many brigades
so just to be clear, you know exactly how many terrorists you've killed, but you have no idea how many civilians.
We estimate that there's about 14,000 terrorists, which we've gotten rid of. We know how many are left. There's 4 brigades, and that's why we're in Rafah.
And how many civilians have you killed?
The UN, again, Piers, in the middle of the Second World War, I don't think you could have pushed Churchill.
You're doing it as well.
Ask him,
sorry,
Fleur. What am I doing?
You're doing the same thing the government spokesman did.
Absolutely
you know
not.
exactly how many terrorists you've killed, but you've no idea how many civilians.
We don't know exactly.
How convenient.
We don't know exactly.
How convenient. That Israel knows exactly how many terrorists you've killed, but you've no idea how many innocent women and children.
Do you believe the UN numbers?
Huh?
Do you believe the UN numbers?
I just find it staggering that you'll all come on and say to me, we know we've killed 14,126 Hamas, but we've no idea how many civilians.
Because we know what the army that we're dealing with is. We know what the terrorist
army sorry, it's nonsense to say you can count one and not the other.
Absolutely not. It's nonsense to even ask the question. I don't know who in the middle of a war starts counting.
You're counting.
The people that they've killed.
You're counting.
No, we know how many are left.
Sorry, you're counting, but you're only counting one side.
Piers, you seem to be a little obsessed with this.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with how many civilians have been killed.
Wow. When you make Piers Morgan... Look, Piers is genuinely sympathetic to the Israelis over October 7th. He's made that clear. He asks every single pro-Palestinian guest when they come on if they condemn Hamas. Okay, this is not some, like, flaming, radical, lefty, pro-Palestine supporter. Okay, that's not who Piers Morgan is. You're making him laugh in your face. You're making him absolute flabbergasted at the dumb shit you say. How do you not see the contradiction there? We know exactly how many terrorists, but civilians, bro. Civilian, bro. What even is a civilian, bro? Do we even really know what a civilian is, bro? What are you doing? What are you doing? So, by the way, just to dive a little more specifically into the numbers here, understand that when she says, oh, we killed 14,000 terrorists, you know how Israel comes to that number? They count all males as terrorists. It's actually very similar to what the U.S. did in Iraq. We would count any military age male as a quote-unquote insurgent. Now, is every male in Gaza a Hamas terrorist? 100% not. Not even close. There are about 30,000 Hamas members in Gaza, but there's 2.3 million people in Gaza, or at least there were before so many of them were murked. So understand that. Understand that. That when they say 14,000, totally made up, and it's just all a rough estimation of the number of males that they killed. What's the reality? Look, you can go with the UN numbers if you so choose, but me personally, I think that the Euromed Monitor numbers are better. That's a human rights group that counts the people who've been under the rubble for an extended period of time. They count them as dead as well, whereas the other groups do not. So when you look at that, it's between 43,000 and 45,000 dead Palestinians in total, and about 38,000 of them or 39,000 of them are innocent civilians, and believe the numbers are about 15,000 children, about 10,000 women. It's horrific. It's horrific. I have no doubt that the number, when all is said and done, the number of dead civilians will definitely be over 80% of the dead. And I'm being very conservative by saying 80%. Most of the indication at this point is that it's over 90%. So, look, I think she knows that. I think they know that. I just don't think they care. I honestly think that in their mind, they think guilty enough. If you're Palestinian, you're governed by Hamas, you could have overthrown Hamas, but you didn't, so therefore you're guilty by extension. They have a lot of bad opinions and a lot of bad beliefs, so they got what's coming to them. But I find that such an ironic argument because you can make the same case against Israelis. It was only 4% of Israelis that were like, hey man, the IDF, you're going too far here. Only 4%. So over 90% of Israelis were cheerleading this ethnic cleansing and this genocide. By their own logic, you could say, hey, fair target, bro. Fair target. They got really bad opinions. They're cheerleading the genociders and the ethnic cleansers. So if they die, are they really civilians? You could use that same argument and flip it back on them. But of course, they'd never accept that. They only accept it when it comes to Palestinians because they fully dehumanize Palestinians. So anyway, dude, again, if you're fucking getting rocked by Piers Morgan on this, and he sounds like he's the pro-Palestine one, god damn it, you are so far gone. You are so far gone. Just complete and utter hack, working backwards from your conclusion. I've really gotten so sick of the idiots who believe this is forces of light versus forces of darkness, and the enlightened ones versus the barbarians, and we're going after Amalek. And like, do you guys realize you sound like fucking ISIS? You sound like fucking Nazis. As you carpet bomb women and children and destroy hospitals, and you pretend like we obviously have the moral high ground. Psychopathic, sociopathic garbage is what it is. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.